Sometimes a person is not killed by a stranger from a dark alley, but by someone who at first just seems like another guy from a bar. He smiles, makes conversation, blends in with everyone else. And then the girl disappears, and it turns out the last place she was seen alive was full of people, music, and bright lights. A place where, it would seem, no one could vanish without a trace. But that is exactly what happened to Julie Popovich. In August of 2005, a 20-year-old college student and model disappeared after a night out at a bar near Ohio State University. At first, police had almost nothing, no body, no direct witness, and no clear picture of what had happened. All they had was a young woman who would never have left without telling someone, and a growing certainty within her family that something terrible had happened. Later, Julie's body was found in a field. And later still, investigators traced the crime back to a man who, until the very end, tried to present himself as nothing more than a good guy who had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Julie Popovich grew up in a suburb of Columbus with her younger sister, Christy. After their parents divorced, their mother, Peggy, moved the girls to a small farm. It was quiet there, peaceful, with a pond nearby, and Julie's childhood passed among nature, games, and a sense of simplicity. According to her mother, she was the kind of child parents usually remember with warmth, not difficult, not mean, not rebellious. People liked her easily. She had striking looks, an open smile, and a calm personality. It became clear early on that she could succeed in modeling. As a teenager, Julie began working as a model, doing shoots, traveling abroad, including to France, where she especially wanted to test herself in the profession. She loved fashion and knew how to present herself perfectly, but she did not build her entire life around her appearance. Julie was smart and practical enough to understand that a modeling career does not last forever. So she enrolled in college, studied literature and education, and dreamed of becoming a teacher. She wanted to teach high school students. In other words, this was not the story of a young woman drifting through life without direction. On the contrary, she had goals, a steady job, school, and a clear sense of where she wanted her future to go. While in school, she met Tanner Rogers. Over time, they began living together. From the outside, they looked like a pretty ordinary young couple, shared apartment, dog, daily routines, and future plans. But later, people close to Julie would say the relationship was tense. They argued often. Sometimes Julie would go stay with her mother or sister for the night. Peggy never especially trusted Tanner and did not think of him as a particularly dependable person, though she did not believe he was capable of something truly horrific. On August 11, 2005, Julie planned to stop by her mother's house and leave her dog there before her evening shift at a restaurant. She said she would arrive around 5 o'clock, but she never showed up. At first, Peggy assumed her daughter had been delayed or changed her plans. She called, left messages, and waited. Then Julie's friend Tiona called and said Julie was missing. At first, Peggy still tried to calm herself. Maybe Julie had argued with Tanner. Maybe she had stayed with friends. But Tiona said the one thing that made those explanations fall apart: Julie had not shown up for work. And that was not normal. Julie might be late, she might change plans. But she would not simply skip work without warning anyone. The night before, Julie had been out with friends. First the group gathered near campus, then went to Lido's, a bar popular with students. They were celebrating a birthday. Julie was not yet 21, so she got into the bar using her friend Tiona's ID. Later, that detail would become important. At the bar, friends noticed Julie talking to a young man. At first, nothing about it seemed dangerous. It was loud, crowded, dark, people were moving around, talking, stepping outside, coming back in. Almost no one got a good look at his face. Later, when the group was discussing what they were doing for the rest of the night, Julie said Tanner was supposed to pick her up. On the surface, that sounded normal. But when everyone started looking for her the next day and reached Tanner, they found out he had never come. That immediately made him important to the investigation. If Julie was expecting her boyfriend and he never showed up, then who had she left with? And why, after learning she never came home, had he not raised the alarm himself? To the people close to Julie, that felt strange. To investigators, it felt even worse. Peggy called Julie's sister, Christy. She dropped everything and came home. Together they stayed up all night waiting for a call or knock at the door. But Julie never appeared. 36 hours later, Peggy filed a missing persons report. Because Julie was an adult, search efforts did not begin as quickly as the family wanted. That delay felt unbearable. When Columbus police and the local FBI office joined the case, investigators first tried to determine whether Julie could have disappeared voluntarily. But that theory started to fall apart almost immediately. Julie had a job, school, close contact with her family, and plans for the future. She had not cut ties, had not been living a double life, and had shown no sign that she intended to vanish. Everything pointed to one conclusion: her disappearance was not her choice. Tanner was one of the first people questioned. He said he had been drinking with friends that night, was too drunk to drive, and therefore did not go pick Julie up. But investigators were struck by how oddly detached he seemed. He spoke about the disappearance of the woman he lived with as if it were a minor inconvenience. He claimed she sometimes stayed overnight with friends before. To police, that was not convincing. They also noticed that Tanner had a bandaged hand. When they asked what had happened, he gave a ridiculous answer. He said he had punched a fire extinguisher. That only deepened suspicion. If there had been a confrontation between him and Julie, she might have fought back. A hand injury could matter. On top of that, family and friends had already said the relationship was troubled. All of this made Tanner the first serious suspect. But when police searched the apartment Julie and Tanner shared, they found nothing that clearly pointed to murder. No signs of a struggle. No blood. No evidence of a hurried cleanup. It was not enough to charge him. Then the case took a turn. A woman named Stephanie Belly, who had also been at Lido's that night, told police that a young guy had bought drinks for her and her friends. She took a sip and immediately noticed something strange about the taste: sharp, bitter, off. She suspected something had been slipped into it and warned her friends not to drink theirs. That caught investigators' attention. If someone at the bar had been trying to drug women, then Julie might not have been the victim of a sudden domestic argument, but of a targeted attack. Stephanie described the man, just over 20, wearing a blue polo shirt. Police showed her photos of several young men who frequented Lido's. She identified one of them, Adam Javarin. Investigators found and questioned him, but his alibi checked out quickly. He really had been somewhere else. They had to move on. Meanwhile, police searched the area around the bar almost foot by foot. They checked alleys, dumpsters, dark corners. Nothing. Julie seemed to have vanished into empty space. 2 weeks after she disappeared, Julie's family and friends gathered for a public show of support. Hope was still alive. But the very next day, Tiona received her ID in the mail. The same ID Julie had used to get into the bar that night. It had been found by a man along the roadside near Hoover Reservoir, about 20 miles from Columbus. For investigators, that was a very bad sign. The ID had not gotten there by accident. Someone had thrown it there. Police searched the reservoir and the surrounding roads, but they found nothing. No body, no belongings, no sign of a struggle. It only deepened the family's fear because the uncertainty continued. Desperate, Julie's family hired a private investigator. He led police to another name, Jacob Parsons. Jacob had met Julie at a different bar where he played in a band. They had gone on a few dates. He said Julie was still living with Tanner and had not decided to leave him for good. That once again fueled the jealousy theory. But Jacob himself had a confirmed alibi. He had not been at Lido's that night and had not seen Julie. Then the investigation got a real break. A detective from the sex crimes unit told them they already had a young man under investigation in a rape case, and his description closely matched the one from Lido's. His name was Adam Sally. He was 18 years old. He lived near the bar and was known to spend time there. When investigators approached him, Adam did not deny being at the bar or talking to Julie. But he claimed he later went home because his mother asked him to help close the family's shop. According to him, he was asleep by around 1:30. His mother backed him up. But for police, that wasn't enough. Then Peggy got the call she had feared from the beginning. They had found a body. On September 1, 2005, workers cutting grass in Westerville discovered badly decomposed remains in a soybean field. The body could not be seen from the road. It was deep in the brush. The face was no longer recognizable, but the clothing matched what Julie had worn to the bar. Later, dental records confirmed the identity. The medical examiner concluded that the body had been there since the night she vanished. That meant Julie had been killed almost immediately. There were no obvious signs of severe beating. The probable cause of death was strangulation. The position of the body and the scene indicated sexual assault. After that, police focused fully on Adam Sally. Witnesses from the bar began identifying him as the young man who had been talking to Julie that night. Some said they had seen him lead her outside. He had been wearing a blue polo shirt. And he was already under investigation for rape. Together, it painted a picture that was too specific to ignore. Investigators searched his car. They hoped to find Julie's hair, DNA, signs of a struggle, anything. But they found nothing. The car was almost perfectly clean. And that, in itself, seemed suspicious. Later, Adam's co-workers told investigators that shortly after Julie disappeared, he had thoroughly cleaned the interior. He worked at an oil change shop and had every opportunity to make the car spotless. Adam failed a polygraph on the key questions: whether he was connected to Julie's disappearance, whether she had been in his car, whether he knew where she was, whether she was alive the last time he saw her. But even that was not enough on its own. The breakthrough came through cell phone records. Adam claimed he had been asleep at home by 1:30. But his phone told a different story. Around 3:42 in the morning, it had connected to a tower near the field where Julie's body was later found. That completely destroyed his alibi. Now police knew he had lied. But they still needed one more blow. And it came from jail. While Adam was being held on the rape case, another inmate told police that Sally had confessed to killing Julie. According to the informant, Adam said he had raped and strangled her. Even more important, he gave police a note written by Sally in which he was trying to arrange a false alibi. Adam was looking for a girl who would lie and say she had been with him that night. So police launched an undercover operation. A female officer, using the fake name Brandy Alexandra, gained his trust. Over a period of weeks, Adam discussed with her how she should go to his attorney and claim she had slept with him the night Julie disappeared. Even while sitting behind bars, he was still actively trying to cover his tracks. In January of 2006, Adam was acquitted in the rape case because there was not enough evidence. But he barely made it out. Immediately afterward, he was charged with the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Julie Popovich. At trial, Adam insisted he was innocent. But the prosecution's case was clear and consistent. He met Julie at the party, stayed near her at the bar, led her outside, drove her to the field, raped her, and then strangled her because he knew that if she survived, she would identify him and he would go to prison. After that, he dumped the body and tried to erase every trace. The jury convicted him. Adam Sally was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole only after 38 years. For Julie's family, it was not comfort. But it was the end of a terrible uncertainty. The man who took their daughter had been identified and punished. The story of Julie Popovich is terrifying not only because of the crime itself. It is terrifying because of how easily a young woman can disappear in the middle of music, lights, and a crowd. It is terrifying because of how long evil can remain almost invisible. And it is especially terrifying because the killer, at first, looked like the most ordinary kind of young man, talkative, casual, completely forgettable. That is why stories like this stay with people. Because danger does not always look dangerous at first glance. What do you think about this case? Write your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're not saying goodbye.